The loveliest, warmest welcome and hi to everybody who's listening today. I am coming at you guys live with a brand new episode from the Blue is a Joyful Color podcast. I am so excited to see all your faces today. I'm so excited to be streaming from whatever kind of platform you're streaming me from. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys today. I need this. I'm really excited about today's episode. So this episode is going to be unlike any other episode that I've done in this series so far. So I'm really excited about this. I hope that you guys are also excited. It's going to be an amazing episode. I'm claiming it in Jesus' name. And we're all going to be ravenous and just on fire for the Lord today. Can we say ravenous together? Ravenous. It's going to be a good episode. I'm excited for this. So before we get into anything with today's episode, if you know it, say it with me. For anyone who may not know me, my name is Dev. I am 25 years old and I have been single my entire life. And while it may seem like the contents of today's episode might seem like I hold a PhD in being single, I can assure you that isn't the case. As you listen to the contents of today's episode, I just ask that if there's anything that's been highlighted to you or even brought to your attention, go about it to the Lord later in prayer and asking for discernment. What is He speaking to you? Why is He highlighting this? And most importantly, what kind of revelation did you get from it? I love when you guys share with me and tell me about how this podcast is just blessing your life and how it's just helping you to open up your eyes in your single season and really just see the Lord and how He's working in your life differently than how you saw it before. It's been amazing. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into the hardest pill to swallow from Judges 11. Now, I know you guys are probably looking at the title of this episode and you're probably just like, okay, what harsh lessons are we learning today? I don't even know if I'm ready for this. You're probably not ready for it, but it's okay. We're all going to be ready together. This is going to be an amazing episode because in prior episodes, I've normally bounced around between a bunch of different scriptures, a bunch of different translations, and just kind of did like a full 360 and like a circle of things to just bring it all together for the past episodes for all of us to be able to learn a lesson together. This episode is completely different. We're actually going to just be staying in the book of Judges and specifically Judges 11 the entire time. I will be reading the latter half of Judges 11 to you guys, and I'm going to just basically tell you guys the personal revelation that I got from this. If you've gotten anything different, please share. I would love, love, love to hear it. But I wanted to speak on my personal revelation that I received from Judges 11 and just how I think it's going to be very beneficial to not only my single season, but anyone else's who's listening to this as well. And hopefully, even in your marriage or your relationship if you're not single. So let's get into it. We're going to read in Judges 11, verses 29 through 40, and we're reading from NIV. So it says in verse 29, then the Spirit of the Lord came on Jephtheh. He crossed Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from there he advanced against the Ammonites. And Jephtheh made a vow to the Lord, if you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Then Jephthah went over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into his hands. He devastated 20 towns from Aroer to the vicinity of Minnith, as far as Abel Kiramim. Thus Israel subdued Ammon. When Jephthah returned to his home in Mizpah, who should come out to meet him but his daughter, dancing to the sound of timbrels? She was an only child. I feel that needs to be important. Just kind of put a star next to it, that she was an only child. Except for her, he had neither son nor daughter. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Oh no, my daughter! You have brought me down, and I am devastated. I have made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break." Now listen to how his daughter responds. This is revolutionary. So in verse 36 it says, "My father," she replied, "you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. But grant me this one request," she said. "Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends, because I will never marry." "You may go," he said, and he let her go for 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never marry. After the 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. From this comes the Israelite tradition that each year the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. So, kind of a lot to unpack with this reading from Judges 11. Um, and it's such a good reading, first and foremost. There were a couple different lessons that I got from this, which I will be sharing in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to just break down everything that happened from 29 through 40 in the verses from start to finish. So, as you guys all know, or as you might know, I don't know who all is listening that's read Judges yet and who hasn't, but essentially if you've never read the book of Judges, it's basically it goes by its title. So in this time, Israel is just sinning a lot. They're causing a lot of evil. They're worshiping false idols. They're intermingling with other nations, and they're intermarrying with people that are not the Lord's people, that God has not ordained or called them to be married and united and conjoined to. And so there's just all this evil happening. And so God is literally appointing different judges in a variety of time frames to rule over Israel, and a lot of them are prophets, and God is just calling these different people. So these judges are ruling anywhere from like a couple years up to 40 plus. They're just doing what the Lord is calling them to do, and they're ruling. So Jephthah was one of the judges, and he is calling onto the Lord, asking for his strength and asking for his help because they're currently in a war right now. And there was a lot of war that was happening in this time of the Old Testament as well, that Israel was just constantly getting into some kind of warfare with somebody. But so basically, Jephthah is the leader of the Israelites at this time. He calls on the Lord's help, as we hear, when he says, if you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph, for the Ammonites will be the Lord's. So he's literally telling the Lord, like, if you give me this victory, whatever comes out of my house in advance, I'm giving it to you because you are worthy, and you've given us this win that we didn't even really deserve. So it's just incredible seeing Jephthah's faith, and the fact that he's just so obedient to God that he's already giving a sacrifice. He's already giving a gift to the Lord for his sacrifice, for what the Lord is doing for him. He's already giving to the Lord in advance. And then, he wins this victory. God gives him this win. He gets home. His daughter's the first thing that comes out of his house. And the crazy thing about this story, if you've read it before, or even if you've never read it, and it's your first time reading it with me, the crazy thing is that when Jephthah makes his prayer to God and he says, God, the first thing that comes out of my house will be yours, he has no idea it's going to be his daughter. Like, I don't know, like, granted to this day, like, I still don't know what Jephthah thought was going to come out of his house. I don't know if he expected it to be like livestock or a servant or something. I'm honestly not sure what Jephthah had in mind that he was going to be offering up to the Lord, but I'm sure that the very last thing on his mind was going to be his daughter. So his daughter comes out, and I really truly feel like this is just a test, right? Like, this was a test of like, okay, are you actually going to stick to what you said? Are you going to be obedient to God and go forth through your sacrifice you made to him when you prayed asking for a victory? So Jephthah's daughter leaves the house. He's like crying in anguish, tears his clothes. Oh my gosh, my daughter, you weren't supposed to come out of the house. Okay, well, Father, you made this promise to God, so do to me whatever you said that you were going to, do when you prayed this to God. And then she asked for this time to be with her friends to just weep and mourn over the fact that she's going to die an unmarried woman and a virgin. So I wanted really to just be able to break down this story in this reading in two different parts, right? So the first part, we're going to have Jephthah and his relationship with the Lord, and then Jephthah's daughter's response and how we move forward from that. And so essentially the first hard to swallow pill, or like hard pill to swallow lesson that I got from this reading, is that the first one is that your obedience comes at a cost, right? And of course, it's not something that we all want to hear. We don't want to hear that your obedience comes at a cost. We want to be happy. We want our walk with the Lord to be sunshine and rainbows. We want to be able to know that our obedience can bring us blessings. But we also have to understand that if we're going to talk about our walk with the Lord, and we're going to talk about what it truly means to follow Christ, we have to understand that following God really does come at a cost, and especially our obedience. So I think what's really amazing about this lesson regarding Jephthah is that, again, like how I said earlier, he wasn't expecting his daughter to come out of the house. I don't know what he was expecting to be met with when he first comes back to his home after winning this victory, but he's not expecting his daughter. So it's incredible because it's like he's mixing faith and obedience, and he's telling God, like, well, God, first of all, I already know that you're going to win this battle. I know that you can bring us this victory. I know that you are stronger than what I'm up against. I know that you're stronger than what I'm facing. And so, because of that, I'm going to pray anyway. I know that you can do it, but I'm going to pray anyway, asking you for this victory because even though I know I can do it, it still means a lot for me to ask for your help. So, Jephthah is literally putting himself in a surrender position. He is he's making himself less so that God can be more, right? And I know we've all heard the Bible verse of, God must become greater, I must become less. And I really truly believe that Jephthah was exemplifying this whenever he was praying to God and asking for his help. He's wanting God to just be able to help him out, right? So he prays this to God, and the Lord gives him this victory. And it literally even says in here in verse 33 that he devastated 20 towns. And I love the verbiage that they use in this, right? Because it wasn't just like, oh, Jephthah went and like he conquered and like, oh, he killed a certain number of people. Oh, like, he just went in and him and his soldiers did what they needed to do. Like, no, it literally says in NIV in verse 33 that he devastated 20 towns from Aroer to the vicinity of Minnith and as far as Abel Kiramim. Now, I will be honest, I am not a geography girly in the slightest. I don't know anything about geography. I'm not sure how far this is, like all like the mileage or the distance or anything from all of these different cities. But the fact that the Bible is saying that he devastated these towns, like you just know that the spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah and his army, that they were able to completely destroy and conquer 20 different towns between three different cities. Like God was really, really with them. And I truly believe that not only was it Jephthah's prayer that went up to the Lord that was able to help him conquer it, but I really truly believe that it was his faith. And it's kind of like the story in the Bible, which is way later in the Bible, but the story of the man who's lame and his friends, they drop him through the roof. Like they're like dropping him through the roof where Jesus is, and they're saying like, "Hey, like we believe that you can heal, our friend, the man who's lame. He's like, I know that you can heal me. I've heard about who you are. You are the Messiah. You can heal me." And then Jesus says, "Because of your faith, you are healed." So I truly believe that it wasn't just God's power in this moment, but it was also Jephthah's faith. I think that if Jephthah's faith wasn't as strong as it was in the Lord that he'd be able to conquer for them, I don't think that he would have been able to devastate as many towns or even his destruction would have been as powerful and strong as it was. So Jephthah gets home. He sees his daughter come out and he like instantly remembers his prayer and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I prayed this to God and my daughter was the first person that came out of my house to meet me. I have to sacrifice my daughter." And I know he didn't want to. And I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine, I can empathize from a parent's perspective of how it must be to be a parent and you're leading an army, right? Like you're leading an army into this crazy war and you're just trusting that God's going to be able to get you through it. And you're praying to God and you say, "Okay, whatever's the first thing to meet me coming out of my home, I will sacrifice that to you because I know you're going to get me through this battle." And you get home and then your only child comes out of your house and just in like this beautiful mood, just singing and dancing, just in their own little world. And this one kid that you have to sacrifice them because of the prayer that you made prior. And so it's so interesting to me that Jephthah is like he's just torn to shreds. He like literally rips his clothes in anguish. Like he rips his clothes and he's just grieving because he knows that he has to sacrifice his daughter. He hasn't even told his daughter yet what his prayer was. But I think what's so interesting in this moment is that Jephthah's daughter tells him, he says, or no, she says, "Well, my father, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me as you promised, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies." And I think what's so interesting about this is that not only was this a test for Jephthah, that he was supposed to not only be obedient to him, like to God, but the fact that Jephthah's daughter is giving him this reminder of like, "Hey, whatever prayer you made to God, do it anyway, because he's avenged you of your enemies, and he didn't have to do that." So essentially at that point, Jephthah, he turns to obedience and he sacrifices his daughter, like how he said he was going to do per his prayer that he lifted up to the Lord before they even went in and conquered all of these cities. And what I think is interesting is that, of course, his daughter goes on this 2 month, getaway with her friends, and she's just letting it all out and she's just crying. But I love the fact that they were both obedient. Jephthah knew that he was going to lose his only child in this moment. And his daughter knew that she was going to die an unmarried woman and a virgin, but they still knew that God was greater than their circumstance. They still knew that God was greater than what their grievances were going to be, and they still fell into obedience anyway. And I feel like that's something that we really need to meditate on and get from this, is that it might not look pretty. Your circumstance might not look pretty. It might be something that's going to absolutely break your heart and devastate you, and it's going to grieve your heart, and it might be something that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. But it's so important to be obedient to God, because you never know how it's going to bless you in the long run. You never know how God is going to use that. And truly, I really do believe that, even though I don't have the Bible verse pulled up, I do truly believe that it's important to understand and realize that, yes, Jephthah won this war, right? He was avenged of his enemies. They were probably well known and they were famous at this time for devastating 20 different towns and having this ultimate win, this ultimate victory from the Lord. But Jephthah's act of obedience wasn't him winning this war. It wasn't him and his army conquering. His real riches were in heaven. Okay, I feel like somebody needs to hear this, that when you're obedient to the Lord, your riches are not on this earth, you're earning riches in heaven. So no matter how it looks in the moment, no matter what emotions you might be facing and what you're going to lose in the natural, you are actually gaining not only in the supernatural, but you're gaining in your eternal home. So I thought that was super interesting, that like that was just the perspective that I got from this, is that they're both gaining so much more than what they had on this earth by being obedient to God and walking in that with him. So that was just the first lesson that I got from this reading, was that your obedience comes at a cost. And it absolutely will probably, like, your obedience to the Lord will probably cost you everything that you have in the natural, or a very large chunk of what has been given to you in the natural. But there's still something to look forward to, and God's grace and his blessings are so much bigger than what's in front of your face and what you might be losing in your own life. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I really hope I'm making sense of this. But your obedience comes at a cost, but obey anyway. I think that's what we need to learn from this. Obey anyway, no matter how much it'll cost you, right? So that's the first lesson that I got from this reading. And then the second one, which I really feel like is the hardest pill to swallow that I got from this reading. And I would even like to backtrack to the first episode. Remember when you guys listened to the first episode, at the very end of the episode, I mentioned that, the hard pill to swallow, that some of us might not get married in this lifetime, that we are not promised a spouse, that we are not promised a marriage, we're not promised being in a relationship, we're not promised any of these things, and that we just need to be fully content with the Lord. And so the next hard pill to swallow, I don't know why I can't say this phrase today. The next hard pill to swallow lesson that I got from this is what I just said, essentially about how we're not promised a spouse. And so moving to the latter half of this reading, and just going into Jephthah's daughter, and what I got from this, like the lesson that I got from this, is that Jephthah's daughter knew that she was going to die. She knew that her life was going to be cut shorter than she would like it to. I'm sure that Jephthah's daughter had so many dreams and goals and ambitions and things that she wanted to experience in this lifetime. I'm sure she wanted to get married. I'm sure that she wanted to be a mother. I'm sure that she wanted to experience different gifts from the Lord that God had for her. And it was all taken because Jephthah prayed this prayer not knowing that it was going to cost them both. But the fact that Jephthah's daughter knew that she was going to pass away, but she still acted in obedience to God. And I think it's so amazing that she asked for 2 months to be able to spend with her friends, to just mourn this time of not being able, or, of being, preparing herself to know that she's not going to be on this earth for much longer, that she's not going to be able to live the life that she wants to live. I don't know if there's really any significance behind her taking 2 months away to be with her friends. I don't know if there's any significance like with that time frame or anything of the sort. I don't know if that was like a custom back then, that you would just take 2 months to just grieve um, before something of that extent would happen. I'm not really too sure, but just I can just only imagine, like, as a single woman myself, especially one that has never been in a relationship, I can't imagine what all must have been going through Jephthah's daughter's head from the moment that her father told her about this prayer until the end of her 2 months that she was with her friends for, just mourning and grieving. I can't even imagine the times that she must have cried so hard that her chest hurt, that she probably ran out of tears, that she was just, there probably must have been so many unknowns just coursing through her, so many waves, probably strong waves too, of just doubt and fear and worry that were hitting her left and right. It's hard to understand truly just how Jephthah's daughter must have really felt in that moment, but you just know that there were probably times where she was just fully depressed. And there were probably times that, in the same way with Job and his friends, they just had to sit in, like, her friends had to sit in silence with her. Because what do you say to your friend that probably wanted to, was striving to be a wife and a mother in the future, and then it's just all been taken from her, but she's doing this out of an act of obedience? It's like, there's really not a whole lot you can say to that friend, and sometimes you just have to sit in silence with them and just let the Lord's presence just surround you guys. And then maybe there were times that she was up in the mountains with her friends and she was rejoicing and she said, "You know what, God, I know that I'm not getting what I personally wanted from this life, but I have you and I get to be with you soon, and that's all that matters." We just don't really know what was going through his daughter's head in those 2 months that she was up in the mountains with her friends, or in the hills, sorry, that she was up in the hills with her friends and going through what she went through. But the fact that she trusted God and leaned on him and relied on him more than her personal desires in this lifetime just speaks volumes. Um, and I think it's just so important to understand that from Jephthah's daughter, like, reading this message about her, is that she cared more about walking in obedience with the Lord and being connected with God than she cared about her own personal desires. And I just feel like that's something that we need to just take into today's day and age. If you are single listening to this message, if you're single today listening to today's podcast episode, it's so important to understand that, yes, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a wife. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a wife and a mother. There's nothing wrong with having your personal desires and wanting from the Lord what you want from him and what you would like to see in this lifetime. But it's also important to understand that we need to want God more than anything. And our want for God has to be much stronger than our want for our personal lives. I think it's important that whether or not you've gotten a promise from God about having a future spouse, we need to have a perspective of Jephthah's daughter, of, okay, I know what's coming. I know that, well, I mean, and maybe if you don't know, but when she knew that she was not going to live much longer and have a spouse or lose her virginity or anything of the sort, she still followed God. She still trusted him, and she still allowed God's plan to persevere anyway. She still allowed Jephthah's prayer to God to persevere anyway. And I think that's just so important to carry with us, that God is greater and he's bigger than what we want. And we have to understand that. We have to realize that. I think that when we get to a point in our single season where we realize, okay, God, you're greater than my desires. And no matter what happens, I'm sticking with you. Like, you're all I want. You're all that I need. And this is my mindset until the day that I die. I really truly believe that it really helps us to stay connected to God, to be hidden with Christ. I think it really teaches us what it truly means to be hidden with Christ and to really be a follower of Jesus. And again, I really hope this all making sense. It makes sense in my head, the message that I've gotten from this reading and just what this reading has taught me. And I just really hope that I'm portraying this message to you guys in the same way that the Holy Spirit has portrayed it to me. But I just think that the two biggest lessons that we need to get from this is just being obedient to God no matter what, and understanding that God is greater than our personal desires. Like, we can desire all we want to be a wife, to be a mother, to have our kingdom spouse that we go to the grave with. But at the end of the day, we're not promised that. And even if you were to die today or 2 months from now or however long from now, and you don't have a spouse and you don't have kids, are you still willing to worship God anyway? Are you still willing to follow God anyway? Are you still willing to let his plan persevere for your life anyway? Is it ingrained in your head? Do you truly know in your mind, and not only in your mind but also in your spirit, that the other side of heaven, where you're going to be with God for all of eternity, do you understand that's better than what you're ever going to get on this earth? Do you know that? Is it ingrained in you that the other side of this lifetime is so much better than what you're ever going to have on this lifetime? And I think that even though Jephthah's daughter was in the hills with her friends for those 2 months, mourning and grieving and just crying out to God, and just so probably bitterly upset that she was not going to be able to get a spouse, that she's not going to ever be able to marry, and that she was going to be, she was going to die a virgin. I think that deep down she knew, I know this is not the life that I'm getting, like the life that I want for myself. I'm not getting that, which is so unfortunate. But what's on the other side of this lifetime for me is so much better than what I could get on this side of my lifetime. Again, I hope that makes sense. But I think those are just two big lessons that we just need to have ingrained in us, that just continue walking in obedience. No matter what it costs you, continue walking in obedience and have it ingrained in you that your eternal lifetime that you get to spend with Jesus, when you are face to face with him, when you are walking with God for the rest of your life in eternity in heaven, that's so much better than what we can have on this earth. So I really just wanted to go over this. I know they're hard pills to swallow, but the more you become accustomed with your relationship with Jesus, and the more you become accustomed with it's just me and Jesus against the world, and I'm sticking with Jesus no matter what, I feel like the easier your single season starts to become. And maybe not the easier that your walk becomes, but the more that you begin to trust God in your walk. And I'm extremely grateful for today's episode, and I'm extremely grateful for today's reading and the revelation the Holy Spirit has given me, because I know when we listened to, like from this podcast episode from 2 weeks ago, I was in shambles. Like the wedding blues were bad. They were weighing on me so heavily. And I was kind of just like, okay, God, like I really can't see past like this heavyweight that's on me. I can't really see past like this shade of blue that's on me. It's just really hard to still be content in my single season. And I feel like God gave me Judges 11 and he said, no, like keep trusting in me, know that there's better. And even if there's not quote unquote better on this side of heaven, there certainly is where I'm at. So I really hope that this was an encouraging word for you guys. I know that there were some harsh lessons, but there's beauty in the pain. There's still abundance to learn from these harsh lessons. And I don't even really want to call them harsh lessons, even though I know I've been calling them harsh lessons this entire episode, but I don't even really want to call it a harsh lesson. I think it's just being acclimated to reality. And I think that the more we get acclimated to reality regarding what's in the word and tying that in with our personal lives, then the better our walk will be. So I truly hope that today's message has blessed somebody, because I know that this reading and the revelation that the Holy Spirit has given me has blessed me abundantly. And I really truly believe it's going to carry me through the next 2 weeks until the next episode. And I really hope it carries you in the same way that it has for me. So thank you guys so much again today for listening to today's message and being so supportive. I'm so grateful for every single person who tunes in and who listens and just provides their support and is so kind to me. I'm so grateful for all of you guys. And please, please make sure to set a reminder, put on your calendar, write it down in your hand and pen, maybe permanent marker with a Sharpie. I don't know. But tune in for the next episode that's 2 weeks from now, because I promise you, you guys are not going to want to miss it. This is actually, I feel like the next episode is going to be my favorite episode in this entire series. So I'm super excited for that. So tune in. But until next time, I hope you guys stay blessed and stay connected to God always. Bye, guys.